I'm Sparrow. I've been LARPing since fall of '08. I got involved because I was at a college that had a bunch of LARP stuff going on, and then I started talking about how to do LARP better and listening to people talk about how LARP worked, and eventually wrote a game, and I'm now writing a second game.
How do you define LARP? And specifically, how do you describe it to someone who doesn't know anything about it?
I've actually done that a couple of times because I used to hang out in the LARP tag on Tumblr, where you get a number of people who come in who post there because they have no knowledge of what LARP is and are kind of either curious about it or amused by it or just whatever. And I've heard some stuff. And so what I generally say is, in general, a LARP is a live action role playing or an activity where you have some characters who are written before the game begins. And the game or the activity is a simulation of some kind where you play roles, and as opposed to other types of role-play, including internet role-play or tabletop, where you narrate actions that are taken, my character walks into the room and says to you, and says to the other people that they're so upset about whatever's happened, you actually walk into a room and start shouting at people who've displeased you, or your character, as it were. Boffer LARPs tend to happen outside. And they tend to be, bigger and more live combat is the distinguishing feature, where you have, combat with foam weapons, and you have a lot of the stuff on the web with the videos with the lightning bolt kid, things like that, where you have people who are really hitting people or doing whatever they do. Theater LARP's abstract combat with index cards or dice or other nonsense or rock, paper, scissors, so we tend to have more elaborate costuming and be indoors. Or differently elaborate costuming, I should say. We tend to have costuming that's less practical for running around the woods or getting hit with a stick, because we don't have sticks. Or often woods. And tends to then be more focused on political arguments or, period dramas, and looks a little bit more like improv theater, or talking about your feelings in a room with some people who are also having totally pretend sad feelings or happy feelings, than, hitting you with this huge foam stick.
So recently in the community there's been a question which has been cropping up, which is the question of whether LARP is a type of game or an art form. Where do you come down on that, and why?
I think my answer is mostly yes, in that there are LARPs that are very clearly games, where, in the way that a role-playing game is a game, you have a Dungeons & Dragons type activity or a GURPS type activity where you have a character who's usually heroic but sometimes a bad guy, who has these goals, I want to defend Earth from being destroyed. In order to do this, I need to, accomplish X and Y and Z. I also have this side plot where I'm, madly in love with this other character and I want to protect them from harm, and so on and so forth. But you have goals to accomplish, and you have a game as a way of playing or experimenting with taking actions you would take in real life with a clear goal and with a clear process. It's about doing stuff, where art is often much more about experiencing and kind of playing with emotion, playing less with, I'm playing a character that has a goal, or I'm engaging in an activity that has a win condition. That I will know if I have been victorious in this LARP. In a more artsy game, you might be playing a person who's going to a party, and they're not sure how they feel about going to this party, but they have some reasons for being there, they have some issues, or a person who's just, woken up in a bunker with no memory of how they got there. And is now having an experience and having a kind of interactive narrative process that has no clear win condition. It makes it more about acting out a role, or kind of being sort of performative or experiential, though experiential is kind of a buzzword I don't really like, because most things are experienced, actually, at some point. But if it's a artwork, there's less of a clear win condition process and more of just, you're here to experience the thing and play with ideas like betrayal and identity and catharsis, and you start using words like diegetic when you are making art and trying to talk about artsy ideas about how to communicate worlds and identities and things like that. If you're just trying to pretend to be good or bad guys and beat up the other team, then you don't tend to talk at quite so much length about like how your narratives are art and how what they communicate about the human condition. So I feel like the LARP as art people are overrepresented in the, you know, being theater LARPers who talk at length population. But the LARP as game definitely exists and is a valid way of spending, you know, an afternoon or weekend.
What do you think makes a good character?
It's a hard question to answer because a lot of it is contextual, or it depends. Generally speaking, a good character is one that the players consented to or signed up for and sort of questionnaire for, whatever that entails in your LARP community. I understand there are communities that don't use casting questionnaires, but that have pre-game processes other than that to try and signpost, sort of indicate or telegraph, like, this is what we want you to do in this game, and that you agree to at some point before you're like being that person in that position. Because that's critically important. And that you find enjoyable. And there's stuff that almost nobody likes, or that nobody likes, in terms of just, you know, sit in a room, do not talk to anyone, feel bad. It's not actually a role anyone wants to play for an hour, or for a weekend, or a campaign, because you have nothing to do, and there are roles that approach nothing to do, and wind up being boring in a similar way. Interestingly, running a good LARP character, it's possible to succeed in a lot of different ways if you have the right player, because there are some roles that involve very little agency and are very much not game rules, but art rules, kind of, where you have no win condition. You possibly have no way to get to a winning condition because it's a game that's, you know, about the Easter story, or about loss as a theme, and guilt and regret and sorrow, and like, you know, your host, this character is in a bad place, and they're gonna stay there, and then it's gonna end. And you have this cathartic experience that I really enjoyed that does not approach good things happen to your character in any sense. And you also have games that succeed by going in a very different direction, where like you have a lot of agency and you're like some kind of superhero who has all these things to do, and you can do them, and you can win, and you can solve problems, and victory is very much possible and likely. And you have a lot of space where people will enjoy emotional and narrative experiences. There are a lot of stories some people think are good, or a lot of people think are good. And there are a lot of ways to tell a good story that is an interactive story. There are a few ways of telling a story that no one will enjoy that are just bad. And then there's a somewhat larger set of stories that, like, I know people who would like to be this character for however long you want someone to play this role. This is a really bad role for me, because I don't want to exist in this universe, and or I don't want to be this person in this universe. Because it's a matter of taste, and I'm not going to like this for approximately the reasons why I didn't like, you know, season 7 of Doctor Who, or I don't know, a number of other things I don't like because there's stuff I don't like, which is not the same as your narrative's bad, and it's the same as I don't want to participate in consuming it. Because I think in some ways, I'm rambling a little bit here, but running a good character is hard because the characters I will enjoy playing and the characters you will enjoy playing are not a identical set for any two people in LARP. So you don't have one right answer for, you know, if I give everyone this character, they will all have fun. We'll have an all Batman game and it will be great. Doesn't work. So not everyone wants to be Batman. I probably don't want to be Batman. I like the other all Batman game, but that's a sort of separate story.